The ballroom glittered like a promise. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above a sea of white roses. Cameras waited. Guests whispered behind manicured hands. At the center of it all sat Eleanor Vale, draped in silk and diamonds, her wheelchair positioned precisely where the aisle met the altar. She had built half the skyline of the city. At 38, Eleanor was a self-made millionaire, founder of a real estate empire that turned abandoned factories into art districts and dying neighborhoods into living communities. After the accident 5 years ago left her paralyzed from the waist down, she had rebuilt herself too. Today was supposed to be her happiest day. Instead, she watched her fiancé walk toward her with a face she no longer recognized. "I can't do this," he said, not loudly, but loud enough. "I didn't sign up for a life of this." The words cracked across the room. For a moment, the music faltered. Then the whispers began. The groom stepped back, loosened his tie, and walked away from the altar, from the cameras, from her. From her. Eleanor did not cry. Not then. Her spine could not feel pain, but her heart felt everything. She sat alone in the middle of a room filled with people who suddenly found the ceiling very interesting. Across the ballroom, near the catering entrance, Daniel Armin adjusted the strap of the worn backpack slung over his shoulder. He was not a guest. He was there to pick up leftover desserts for the small bakery where he worked nights. The manager had struck a quiet deal with the wedding planner. Daniel had brought his 7-year-old daughter, Lila, because he could not afford a babysitter. Lila tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, why is the bride sitting by herself?" He followed her gaze. He had seen heartbreak before. He had felt it the day his wife left, unable to handle the hospital bills after Lila's surgery. He knew the look of someone holding themselves together by force. "She shouldn't be alone," Lila whispered. Daniel hesitated. He was wearing second-hand shoes and a shirt that had been ironed too many times. This was not his world. But loneliness was. He walked forward before he could talk himself out of it. The crowd parted out of confusion more than courtesy. Eleanor noticed him only when he stopped in front of her. He did not look at her chair first. He looked at her face. His voice was steady but gentle. "I'm not sure if the music is still playing," he said, glancing toward the stunned violinist, "but shall we dance?" A ripple of uncomfortable laughter spread through the room. Eleanor blinked. "You do realize," she replied coolly, "that I can't stand." Daniel nodded. "I know. But dancing isn't only about legs." For the first time since her world cracked open, her lips twitched. The violinist, perhaps grateful for direction, began to play again. Soft. Careful. Daniel stepped closer. "May I?" She studied him. His hands were rough. His eyes were honest. There was no pity in them. Only invitation. "Very well," she said. He placed one hand lightly over hers and the other on the armrest of her chair. Slowly, awkwardly, he began to move with her, guiding the wheelchair in a gentle circle. Not pushing. Dancing. It was imperfect. It was quiet. It was real. Lila clapped from the edge of the dance floor. A few guests shifted, uncertain whether to watch or look away. But Eleanor stopped seeing them. She felt the rhythm in her shoulders, in her arms, and the way he matched her pace without taking control. When the song ended, the silence felt different. "Why?" she asked him softly. Daniel shrugged. "Because no one deserves to feel invisible." She held his gaze longer than she expected to. "You're not a guest." "No, ma'am." "Then who are you?" "Just a baker." "And a dad." The word dad softened something in her expression. "And you thought this was your responsibility?" He shook his head. "No. But kindness rarely asks for permission." The wedding planner rushed over, flustered, apologizing, offering to escort Daniel out. Eleanor raised a hand. "He stays." The rest of the evening unraveled into chaos. The groom never returned. The press tried to spin the story before the night was over. Yet the image that spread fastest was not of abandonment. It was of a man in worn shoes dancing with a woman in a wheelchair under a chandelier. The next morning, Eleanor could not stop thinking about the look on his daughter's face. Pure pride. She asked her assistant to find him. It did not take long. Daniel Armand lived in a small apartment above the bakery. He worked 2 jobs. Medical debt still followed him like a shadow. When Eleanor arrived unannounced 3 days later, he nearly dropped a tray of bread. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said, wheeling herself inside. He stared, stunned. Lila ran forward. "You're the dancing bride." Eleanor laughed. It surprised her. Over tea at a scratched wooden table, she learned about Lila's heart condition, the surgeries, the nights Daniel had slept in hospital chairs. He spoke without self-pity. Only gratitude that his daughter was alive. "And you?" he asked finally. "What happens now?" She looked around the modest apartment. At the peeling paint. At the framed crayon drawings on the wall. "I built my company from nothing," she said quietly. "But somewhere along the way, I started choosing people who saw me as an asset, not a person." Daniel said nothing. "I don't need someone to carry me," she continued. "I need someone willing to move with me." The words hung between them. Months passed. Eleanor began investing in community housing projects near Daniel's neighborhood. Not as charity. As partnership. She visited often. She asked his opinion. He challenged her ideas when they lacked heart. They argued. They laughed. Lila insisted on teaching Eleanor board games she always won. The city watched, curious. One evening, nearly a year after the wedding that never was, Eleanor hosted another gathering. Smaller. Warmer. No press. At the center of the room was no altar. Only an open space. She wore a simple blue dress. Daniel stood beside her, still in shoes that were never expensive but always clean. "You're certain?" he whispered. She smiled. "Shall we dance?" This time, the room did not hold its breath in shock. It exhaled in joy. He moved with her again, not to rescue, not to prove a point, but because somewhere between heartbreak and healing, they had found something neither had expected. Not a fairy tale. A partnership. And as they turned slowly beneath softer lights, Eleanor realized something profound. The man who could walk had once felt powerless. The woman who could not walk had once felt alone. Together, they moved.